Okay, and welcome to poster design. Today we're going to just talk about a little brief, we're going to look at a bunch of different posters and we're going to kind of talk about some best practices in poster design to hopefully get you thinking and excited about creating your own posters in the style of your chosen graphic designers. We're also going to look at some examples of what those posters could look like. So let's get started. All right, why we love posters. It's definitely not unusual to walk through a public space and see a poster and think, I would love to hang that on my wall. In fact, we often do see and have posters tacked to our own walls in our homes. And whether a poster promotes an art museum or was originally designed as a Christmas card by the Metropolitan Museum of Art, like this love poster was, um, is for a blockbuster film, or is just a voice of dissent. Posters have captured our hearts, they capture our attention, and designers worldwide have embraced posters as the archetypal vehicle for expression. And I think as we started to see in our History of Graphic Design lecture, the poster as form of expression has been used since the dawn of posters. Okay, so here is a small sampling of posters that have really rocked our world through history. All right, so the first one is a poster for the Moulin Rouge. This poster is often called, this poster was designed by a Frenchman. Again, I'm terrible at pronouncing things. We're going to call him Jules Chéret. He is the father of the poster and was one of the first masters of this new four-color lithographic print process that this poster was printed in. This poster is from the 1890s and it was for the Moulin Rouge Cabaret in Paris. The next poster was the Priester Matches poster by Bernhard that we talked about in our lecture of the history of graphic design. And in case anyone forgot, this was the first poster to deviate from the Art Nouveau style and take on the simplicity of this object poster look, reductive images. Probably you've seen these Keep Calm and Carry On and crazy versions of this poster all over the place. They definitely had a resurgence in the last few years. This poster was originally designed by the British Ministry of Information in 1939 to keep up public morale during World War II. It actually was hardly used at the time, but 60 years later it was rediscovered and it's really become a very British slogan. You can find it on tea towels and mugs and t-shirts, and countless variations are all over the place. So it's kind of ironic that at the time it didn't really capture the hearts and minds of the British, but today it definitely does. And then the last poster in this little row, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, is a super fun movie poster from the 1950s, painted by a realist artist named Reynold Brown. And there was definitely a large subgenre of this sort of illustrative movie poster style from the 1950s for many sci-fi movies that happened. All right. So our next grouping of posters, we have I Am a Man. This is a poster from the April 1968 Memphis workers' strike. They were fighting for their right to unionize following the death of two African American sanitation workers. These printed placards saying I am a man were held by members who gathered at the Mason Temple. And there was about 1,300 people that were there, and these were the people that Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the I've Been to the Mountaintop speech to. And then, as you might know, his assassination was the next day. So this poster, while important at the moment, became even more important in history. The next poster, I love that style, the Sweet Corn Festival poster. This was done by a designer named Steve Frycolm, his designs for the annual summer picnic at his job, it was like a corporate summer picnic poster. These were bold and always like foodie screen prints, and they became so popular that they were later put out as a art exhibit show that circulated through a bunch of museums. So these posters became really desirable and sought after by not only his fellow coworkers, but by poster collectors in general. The next poster is definitely an eye-catching one, and it's meant to shock you. The pregnant guy image, and it says, "Would you be more careful if it was you that got pregnant?" So definitely a political ad. It's by the advertising agency Saatchi & Saatchi to raise awareness for contraceptive services in the 1970s by turning the table on men. It's definitely that era in American history was a male-dominated society, male-dominated politics, and so gotta speak to the men in a way that will be shocking. And then the last poster is another really famous poster. It was for the very first Live Aid that happened in 1985, and it is considered, in quotes, the day that music changed the world. It was organized to raise money for the famine relief efforts in Ethiopia. So they had a concert that simultaneously took place in London and in Pennsylvania, and they linked it for a live broadcast, which was really technologically cutting edge for 1985. And as we just had another music benefit concert over this past weekend, music concerts to raise money for social causes after that became pretty much the norm. All right, here's some more posters that changed history. The Silence Equals Death poster was designed in 1984, and it was to raise awareness about AIDS in America. AIDS was becoming an issue in America that the politicians just didn't want to discuss. And in response to just basically the silence that they were getting from the politicians of New York City, some activists put together this poster and a little coalition called the Silence Equals Death Project. And they designed and installed this poster all around the city. And the message was really to try to open up discussions as the only way to tackle this issue. The pink triangle recalls the shape used to mark out homosexuals in Nazi camps. So in the poster, they've inverted the symbol to disavow the victimhood that was felt during that time and take claim to the symbol and make it their own. One thing that's interesting to know as graphic designers is it's really important to understand symbols and symbols through history and understand what they mean, so that if you're going to use that symbol, you understand that you're taking on the whole historical weight of the symbol, whether for good or for something like this, where now you're taking the symbol and turning it on its head, so you're trying to reverse or change or become empowered by a historically negative symbol. So it's really important to understand symbols, especially if you plan on using one, just in case you're using an image that has some historic weight that you didn't intend to imbibe your communication with. So the next poster, some people are gay, get over it. Another, poster tackling a really sensitive issue. This one about anti-gay bullying in schools. This poster was developed by a really large LGBTQ rights charity group in Europe. And they developed it with the help of over 150 school teachers and pupils. So again, bold message. Clearly you understand what their agenda is and what side of the agenda issue that they're pushing. I would hope you all would recognize the Hope poster. It hasn't been that long since 2008 when President Obama's presidential campaign took up this poster design that graphic designer Shepard Fairey created, that he claims he designed in one day and was selling in the streets outside of a convention or a political rally that Obama was holding in Chicago. And the Obama campaign saw the poster, loved it so much that they took it and used it for their national political campaign election, which obviously he won. And then the last poster, I think, we've been looking at really serious topics. Posters have been used throughout history to really talk about political and social injustices. This is a fun poster, but still talking about a serious topic. The campaign was Dumb Ways to Die, and it's a bunch of hapless characters that are trying to raise awareness about railroad safety by the metro trains in Melbourne, Australia. Each poster in the series kind of talks about a dumb way that people die because they're being unsafe around trains. And the posters ran in 2012 in parallel with a viral video campaign, and they actually had a 20% reduction in accidents and near misses on the metro line after this campaign ran. So it was a really successful campaign, and I think it kind of gives a little lightheartedness to some really serious topics that all these posters are discussing. While transit safety is also a serious topic, this one has taken a more humorous approach to get people to read and internalize the messages. So you don't always have to be serious. All right, so for a poster to really affect people, it must first grab people's attention. A poster is seen while someone is on the move, right? Whether you're driving or riding or walking by, a poster is just usually put up large scale in a public space. And it's the poster's job and the designer's job who's making the poster to create something that's engaging enough to capture a person's attention amidst all the other visual clutter, amidst people obviously going from one place to another. So definitely you have to grab someone's attention, because if they don't see your poster and they don't read it, then your poster is not going to affect them. So the technical definition of a poster is a two-dimensional single surface print or digital format, although typically you would think it's print. And a poster is used to inform, whether you're trying to inform people to display information, inform about data, schedules, or offerings. A poster is used to persuade or promote. You could persuade or promote people about your cause, about a place, an event, a person, a brand, programming, a film, a company, a service, or an organization. So posters have a purpose. Whether you're trying to inform people about something, persuade people to take up a social cause or think a certain way, or you're looking to promote an event, a product, a person. Okay, so my brief history of the rise of the poster, some more historical context. So from the 16th to the 19th centuries, before the poster era, broadsides were used to make announcements, publicize news and events, and promote merchandise. The thing on the far left is an example of a broadside. These were large sheets of paper printed on one side and really inexpensive to produce. They were pretty much all words. There wasn't so much design involved in them. It was just getting information to the public. So then, in the late 19th century, there was a lot of advances in the printing technology, especially with color lithography, which allowed for greater color and nuance in the poster reproduction. So before that, it was really time-consuming and expensive to add color to these broadsides. So with the lithography development, now people could start adding color to their posters, and it would reproduce very consistently. Since obviously broadsides or posters, you're producing a large quantity of your communication. So let's see. So by the turn of the century, from 1800s to the 1900s, there were now all of a sudden these colorful posters had really eclipsed broadsides in the preferred method of advertising in Europe. And as we mentioned, I still can't pronounce his name, Jules Cheret, the French lithographer, was really the leading poster maker of the time. And these early posters were primarily text-based. However, these Art Nouveau artists, really led by Tussaud-Lautrec, began experimenting with weaving their hand-drawn type and evocative images of their urban lives into the visual compositions. And by the late 19th century, early 20th century, these posters became all the rage, and the poster craze really began. So that means we've been crazy about posters for around 120 years at this point. All right, concept and design development. So since posters are really about informing or persuading or promoting a specific agenda, you need to have a strong concept and design. Pretty much you need to have a concept being an idea. So you need to have a clear message, and you need to have a good design that supports that message. That's really what this section is all about. So a sound design concept is the basis of the poster design, which is kind of what I just said in a more articulate manner. A concept is not necessarily a message. A concept is the idea that contextualizes both the message in an interesting, unique, and memorable way. So because the brain processes images faster than words, you can convey your ideas much more succinctly through graphics and visuals than through words, which definitely explains why the posters eclipsed the broadsides so quickly. When all of a sudden people could get the same information with pictures than they could with all those words, people prefer the pictures for sure. So a really good poster will be self-explanatory with its visuals. The visuals are going to distill down your information into just a few words, where the concept behind the poster should be the solution that is concise and visually conveys the essence of the main idea of what you're trying to promote. So I put these two pictures on there just because I think everybody knows Grumpy Cat, right? Of meme infamy. But then there's a whole campaign in the 70s, the Hang in There Baby with the Cat campaign. That was, I can't even remember what it was for, but yes, people have been using cats as inspiration for, what is that, like 50 years now. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Okay, so the concept so I kind of already said this. The concept behind a poster should be a solution to concisely and visually convey the essence of the main idea or the point of view. Okay, so I have another awesome acronym for you guys. AIDA, ADA. So we're going to talk about each of these letters of the acronym a little bit and show some examples. So we've got attract attention, hold the viewer's interest, create desire, and then motivate to take action. So these AIDA, this acronym is based off of the stages a consumer goes through to make a purchase, as developed by Elise St. Elmo Lewis in 1898. So really long time ago. But I think the acronym still holds up as what you need to effectively communicate and motivate your audience in a good poster. So the first A is attract attention, right? So again, we talked about how posters are up in a public space, people are moving around, people are busy. You've got to grab their attention. So if you don't grab their attention, then your message is not going to be heard or seen, and your communication will not be successful. So both the concept and the visual form have to stand out and attract attention. And I think these are done in two different ways, right? First poster, definitely with just looking at it, you don't have to read the copy in the poster. You get that we're talking about smoking while pregnant, right? Which is a disturbing visual to begin with. So you're definitely going to attract someone's attention and get a response. And then the second one, the big shocking poster, you've got like high contrast of colors, sharp angles, big word shocking. It's a very vibrant poster. It's yelling, it's in your face. It's hard to not notice a giant red poster with big yellow squiggles on it. So our next letter is I. Hold their interest. All right, so once you've attracted someone's attention, you have to hold the viewer's interest long enough so that they can completely absorb your message. So how are you going to hold their interest? You could have compelling visuals, you could have a clear, concise message, and you could have maybe a challenging visual, something that takes a little bit longer for someone to fully look at and understand. So there's a few different strategies to hold someone's interest to have a compelling composition. So I think these two posters are two kind of different examples of holding someone's interest. The first being the brain being washed along the or scrubbed along the washboard. It's just like a really quick view, but it's kind of like a weird visual and it's a little disturbing. So I think it definitely like holds your interest long enough as your brain kind of like thinks about that whole metaphor. And then the other one is that really intricate, detailed photograph where you understand that with a quick view, you understand that it's lungs in the shape of trees, and the part of the trees have been felded. But I think just because it's such a large panoramic photograph, there's a lot of visual detail, and your eye naturally wants to scan the whole composition and take in all of the details. So that's going to hold someone's interest just by the sheer number of visual information. As we learned about in our other lecture on HOUSE acronym. Okay, see, it's all coming together, guys. All right, so the D, we're going to create desire. So that's going to kind of be different depending on what the purpose of your poster is, but basically your poster should make your viewer want something or to do something, whether it's to buy a product, to go to a show, to take action, to support a politician, whatever you're looking to have somebody do. There should be some sort of call to action in your poster, whether it's overt, like you literally say, like buy tickets now, or it's more suggestive by just the nature of putting, a controversial message out there. So here's two posters that are kind of asking you to do two different things, create some desire. The first one is a movie poster by Saul Bass for Hitchcock film Vertigo. So it's trying to create the desire to go see the movie. What is this movie about? Kind of become intrigued, right? Compelling visuals, interesting colors. And the second poster is a little more obvious. It's literally telling you to go see America. And you're creating the desire to travel, to go see a place you've never seen before, especially maybe in a time of American history where people couldn't travel very easily or were just starting to become able to travel to places outside of their immediate area. So if you lived somewhere that wasn't the American West, this image would be really startling and intriguing and probably desirable to see for yourself. Then our last A is motivate to take action. So once we've grabbed their attention and piqued their interest and created a desire, Now we want them to go out and actually take the action, do something. So again, what do we want people to do? So this first poster, I really like how there's no words on this poster, but you absolutely know that the poster is about saving water, right? Just the design, the visual design sums up the issue and perfectly. And I think everybody has heard about the problem with wasting water, that you immediately understand the action that you're being asked to take. And then the second poster I think is also a nice poster, since it's definitely saying, it has a message, but it's not really telling you to do anything. It's just giving you an option. So this poster that says, "Girls say yes to boys who say no." This was a poster developed to speak out against the Vietnam War. So, you know, sex sells. So we're using some implied sexuality to suggest that if you want to get the girl, you should say no to the draft. All right. So remember, your concept works if you make your audience respond. And then I just included here a few different clenched fist posters from the Annals of Time. And like I'm sure everybody has seen a visual of a clenched fist, whether it's from a poster or just physical photograph of people raising their fists in the air. And even if you didn't know the history behind that visual, you kind of understand what it's about just by looking at the shape of the hand and the aggressive nature of it being thrust in the air, right? But did you know that it was first used during the Mexican Revolution of 1910 to oppose the the main political government of the time? And then it was used again by American students during the Vietnam War, the 1970s. It was used all the way back in 1848 by French students during the Paris Rebellion. And the last poster, it was used by the Black Panther Party, also of the 1970s, for talking about civil rights. So, and it's been used countless times over, again, between, I think 1848 was the earliest instance that I could find of the clenched fist uprising visual. But it's just a very universal image that just reduces to a simple graphic form and yet perfectly symbolizes that people are mad as hell and the world's going to hear about it. So again, understanding visual symbols through history when you're designing your posters. Okay. So now let's review some design strategies for developing your poster concept. So we talked about already the 4 aspects of a poster to make a good communication, that you need to attract attention, create interest, or hold the viewer's interest, create a desire, and then motivate people to take action. So what are some different ways that we could do that? So your poster could definitely be, I think we've seen a bunch of examples where it could be image driven, be all picture or mostly picture with a small bunch of text. It could be text driven, where we've seen posters that it's just text on a page. Or it could be a combination of both text and image, where the text and the image are working cooperatively together. So any of these poster styles can be successful, and it doesn't really matter which path you choose, as long as you end up with a visual that's supporting your concept. And I think the very nature of designing for a poster, which is just one large graphic surface, invites experimentation. So don't be afraid to step away from your computer and use your hands. And I think these are 3 examples of using some experimentation in your poster development. Maybe it's not appropriate for this project, but for future projects moving forward. Always consider stepping away from the computer. So first poster, the Summer Sounds Festival poster. Definitely the image and the type are working cooperatively together, right? And you can see that the background has been made using tactile, actual brush strokes on some surface, right? That was not rendered on the computer. That was somebody actually painted something. Then the next poster about equal work deserves equal pay. That's definitely an image-driven poster, and this looks like actual coins on a poster, but I'm sure it's photorealistic visuals combined with more like hand-drawn markers to create an interesting visual. The contrast of textures and of level of detail definitely grabs your attention, right, to make a compelling poster design. And then that last poster, again, definitely an image-driven poster, but a really compelling visual, right? It's very clearly a fish, but the fish's body is made out of plastic trash. So without even reading the text, again, you understand what this poster is talking about. All right. So our next strategy is to make the viewer think. So again, if you're trying to attract attention and then hold someone's interest by playing some mind tricks on people is definitely a good way to hold their interest as their brains try to figure out exactly what they're looking at. So one of those, we've kind of talked about like positive, negative spaces, foreground, background already when we were talking about visual space and spatial depth. So these are just a few other little clever tricks that you could think about. The first one with that coffee cup and saucer, that is the French term trompe-l'oeil, which is the effect of making things look 3D and have like the text seamlessly integrated into that 3D image, but it's not actually a coffee cup on a saucer. It's a photograph of a coffee cup on a saucer on a white field. So the actual poster is flat, but it looks 3D. So that's the effect, messing with your mind that way. And then that magazine cover for wallpaper is not exactly the same thing, but it's just messing with your mind in a different way, where the placement of the lamp makes it look like it's the eye of an eagle, and just when you look at it, it's really just a lamp sitting in a room of mostly red with a mural painted on the wall of the eagle. But it's painted on the wall in such a way that it looks like it's an eagle with an eyeball coming out into space. So again, the way the image was created and the photograph was taken, it's definitely playing with your eye, again, distorting your spatial depth and your perception of what you assume is happening and what is actually happening when you actually stop and look. So making the viewer think, making the viewer work a little harder to understand your visuals is one good way to hold their interest. And maybe one of like the tried and true compositional tactics of a poster design is really just to use the center of the page. When you place something in the center of the page, it obviously gets the focal attention. It becomes the most important element on the page, and it concentrates the viewer's eye to the main point of your poster. So you've got that Macbeth poster where the type has been rendered, hand cut type in this very simplistic visual, but that visual is really summing up the whole plot of the play in a really quick, eye-catching, dramatic way. And then that other poster for the Public Theater Company, that's a very well-known poster by designer Paula Scheer. And again, main image, center of poster, text is coming out of the center of the poster in a kind of crazy, startling way that really draws your eye and forces you to not be able to look away from that text in that lady's mouth. You can definitely use color purposefully. So color can set the tone and the mood of your composition. It can definitely be used as a main focal point, where the absence of color on a composition can be just as powerful as a bunch of color on a composition. So I think these are 3 posters using color in 3 really different ways. The first one with the Godfather, right? That little touch of red on the rose definitely becomes a focal point, and it definitely starts to send a really severe message about the plot of this film. The center poster, the coloring has kind of been rendered into this like dreamy, unrealistic, super saturated oranges and purples, to kind of make the whole thing kind of feel dreamy and maybe a little like old-fashioned-y and nostalgic. So the use of color on that poster sort of sets the mood. And then the last poster is a crazy psychedelic poster of the 70s, 60s or 70s, and there we're using colors to really just shock the eye, make the eye vibrate, and really, how can you not notice a poster using neon orange, neon pink, and neon blue together with crazy patterns, right? So there, the color is purposely to get your attention. All right. And our last strategy, which is the one we're going to be using for our posters, is to embrace the past. So these posters on this slide were actually all designed within this century, so within the past 19 and a half years, but they're borrowing from historic styles. So by embracing a style or an attitude from a design era of the past, you definitely give that additional layer of meaning to your current message. And it could be done in all seriousness, or it could be done ironically. Right? The choice is yours. So I think some of these are really nice, really fun. All right. Okay, so hopefully that was informative. Hopefully you've between the last lecture and this lecture, a really good idea of the history of graphic design and the importance of the poster played in design. And hopefully you've started to understand that really your posters can have any kind of visual styling. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer for poster design. You've seen like a very varied bunch of styles and techniques and compositions in the deck so far. But our poster project is to create a poster promoting a fictional talk by our chosen graphic designer. So you've researched your graphic designer, you're going to put together a presentation on him or her, biographical in nature, showing his or her works. The second half of this project is you're going to make a poster saying, assuming that like I'm just going to use that he's coming to Forest Park Community College to give a talk, or he's coming to the Fox Theater to give a lecture. You can kind of make up the details because they're arbitrary. But the poster is really just to emulate your graphic designer's style. So you're going to create an original design, but emulating that person's aesthetic. So here are a few examples of what you could do. And I don't think anyone has chosen any of these examples, which is good. If you did choose one of these people, close your eyes until we skip to the next person so you aren't negatively influenced. But yeah, like this poster project is done at many schools throughout time, throughout recent time at least. So if you Google this project with your person, you will probably find some examples of this. I would encourage you to not Google your person poster design so that you are not influenced by what is already out there. Also, quick tip, when you're researching, if you did do a lot of just random Google image searches, go back through before you give your presentation and just verify that those are actual posters that the actual designer made, not posters that contemporary people have made emulating that person's style. Because again, it's a really common project. There are a lot of things on Google Images that are not actually done by the original historic graphic designers. Okay? Okay, let's take a look. All right, so Armin Hoffman is my first example. He was from the Bauhaus. And so what I have on all these slides is the thing on the left is the poster that someone made to emulate Hoffman's style. And the stuff on the right are different examples of designs made by that designer. So in this case, made by Hoffman. And I think that way we can kind of consult how we understand how the contemporary designer created their design in reference to Hoffman's style. In some of these examples, you can really see a direct link. In other examples, it's more suggestive. So like here, we can see the sans serif typeface, which we know was a big thing of the Bauhaus. You can see the black background on the poster. The sample posters definitely all are using a lot of black and white, maybe with a hint of color. And you can see that in this contemporary designer's poster as well. I think you can kind of see maybe a little bit of the type selections. I don't exactly understand the cut in the O of Hoffman and then the repeating of it down the page, other than that it's a really eye-catching geometric visual. And maybe that's all they're going for. If it's referencing a specific design by Hoffman, I'm not sure what that design is. But I think you can kind of see the relationship between historic posters and I don't know what else these are. I know like the first three are definitely posters and the contemporary poster. So let's look at some more examples for inspiration and visual clarity. Okay, Joseph Mueller-Brockmann was the father of the grid system. So again, the poster on the left, definitely playing up the idea of grid. Everything is typeset on a grid. Again, it's very like black and white or gray and white. Looking at Mueller-Brockmann's actual designs on the right, you can see, again, big fan of sans serifs, big fan of the grid, whether it was vertical grid or turning grid on axis for diagonal compositions. Very grid heavy, very sans serif, very large contrast of scale between headline and secondary information. So I think all of those characteristics are representative in this very simple poster that a contemporary designer made on Mueller-Brockmann. Okay, the next one is Chip Kidd. Chip Kidd is a contemporary designer who has done a crap pot of book covers. And so he has done many different book covers in many different styles. I think when you're a contemporary designer, it's much harder to have a specific aesthetic because you really have to design for the concept and design for the client. However, one thing that I thought was good to stick on my composition of Kidd's work is he has that top right image. It says Chip Kidd with the eyeball. That is like his own little logo for himself that he has on his website. And I think in the end, you can see if you looked at his whole body of work, he definitely likes color and pops of color. So I think the poster on the left, which was an ad by Mohawk Paper, kind of gets it. It like looks like Chip Kid, where it's like the same glasses that he wears, and like that little like line of text kind of like emulates like his swoopy hair, and maybe it plays up some of the type styling of like his personal logo, sans serif, it's small. And then I think the big bright pop of color, you could kind of see that with his book covers, with the bright colors, eye-catching, because obviously book covers like posters are all about grabbing the viewer's attention and trying to get someone to buy the book. This next guy is David Carson. He is a contemporary designer from the 2000s, and the poster on the left is, or maybe from the 90s. We'll say 90s, early O's, I'd say. Poster on the left was a contemporary designer emulating David Carson's style, which I think they emulated in a really good way, because the posters on the right are ones actually designed by David Carson, and you can see he's all about this expressive type, this disjointed visuals, kind of really pushing the boundaries of readability. Definitely like lots of texture, lots of layering, and then you definitely see all of that on the left. So I think this one is probably one of the easier ones to really pinpoint. David Carson has a very specific aesthetic, and this designer really matched that aesthetic. And you can kind of see on this one, this is sort of the information that you're looking for in your poster, where like it's very obviously David Carson is the person speaking. They kind of gave like a title to the lecture, if you will, Progression Never Stops. So you could use like a short phrase that kind of sums up your historic graphic designer's perspective on design, or what they're most known for, if you wanted. You don't have to include that kind of like title, but if you have one, definitely you can put it in there. And then you can see on the bottom left, they have their like fake speaking engagement details, right? Like when they're speaking, where they're speaking. They even gave you like the address and like a phone number and a fax and a website. Really, if you just gave me a made-up date and a made-up location, that would be good enough for me. I guess maybe you'd want a time. That's probably one thing that they don't include on here. But yeah, so that's the kind of information that you're looking for on your poster. And my last poster, I think, is for Herbert Bayer. Again, someone from the Bauhaus. So you can see the posters on the right versus the poster on the left. Again, you've got the sans serif fonts. That's a very Bauhaus font that the contemporary designer used for the dates and the titles. You can see they're definitely playing with the grid and turning type on its axes, which was definitely something that the Bauhaus designers liked to do. And you can see the color palette again. It definitely carries over from the actual designs of Bayer, with the red and that like creamy off-white yellow color and the black. So you understand the color palette makes sense. The layout definitely is starting to relate to the actual works. Oh, I had one more. Tishman, or Tischwold. He was from the constructivist period of Germany. And again, you see definitely a similar typeface choices, similar color choices. That little horizontal red bar with the type aligned to it, you can definitely see how that matches Tischhold's actual designs, some of the diagonal lines and falling into an invisible sort of like vanishing point. I think all of that is definitely there. The circle, drawing your attention to the guy's face, definitely all relates to Tischhold's actual designs. Oh, I have more. Look at this. More and more. Massimo Vinelli was a big designer in the, I want to say 80s. He's actually the guy who designed the New York City subway map, which I think is really cool. He also did, he did a lot of stuff. He was definitely like really busy for a decade or so. But again, he definitely was all about legibility. He loved the typeface universe. So I would assume that this poster is set in universe, or if it isn't, it's set in a font that looks a lot like universe. And again, you can see how like that 4-column grid with the little information and the big headline definitely relates to that poster on the top right corner about Milan. So I think you can really see the visual connection here as well. And by now you probably all have a really good sense of what you're going to do for your own posters. Polish here. I think someone's doing her, so skip. Okay, now here's the last slide. Final reminder, just remember, a good poster should elicit a response. And save the bees. Okay, so now you all probably have a really good sense of what makes a good poster design, what I'm actually looking for your poster design assignment, and you might even have some quick ideas that immediately came to you now that you've fully researched your graphic designer and seen a bunch of his or her works. So what we're going to do for the remainder of class is you're going to go start your thumbnail sketches. Thumbnail sketches are due at the end of class. That means by 9:30. What I want you to do first is take a minute, go to the bathroom, get a drink of water, do a lap around your apartment, and internalize what you just saw and heard. Write down come back to your desk, write down your content for your poster. What do you want your poster to say? So just write that out so you have a visual sense of how many words are going to be on your page. And then I want you to sketch at least 10 thumbnail designs for your poster concept. So again, it could be 10 different visual elements. It could be 10 versions of the same basic idea. Don't forget to play with hierarchy of information. Is it going to be you can try with image-driven poster, you can try a text-driven poster, you can try a combination poster. It will definitely help you out if you have up on your screen or have printed out in front of you your little collage of samples that you've gathered from your designer. So you can start to look at all the designs you have from your designer and start to draw some commonalities and really understand like the key parts of their style that makes their stuff really identifiable. If you're working on a more contemporary designer and it's harder to pull really obvious connections, just think about like that Chip Kid poster. Just try to capture the essence of your designer. I'm sure you've researched them to this point where you kind of understand like what is their point of view or what makes them special enough to be included in this very short list of historic graphic designers, and sort of just kind of go from there as your launching point. So you are going to work on these thumbnail designs. When you feel like you have a couple good options, I want you to come back into the Collaborate classroom and show them to me. You can either like share your screen, or if you're not sure how to do that, well, that's not true, you're gonna be sketching. So take a picture with your phone and then you can email that to yourself to get it on your computer, and you can either share your screen and show me that picture, or if you want to email me I can look at it that way, whatever is easiest for you guys. And then we'll talk, you'll pick a direction, and then you'll refine that sketch for next class on 4/8. All right, and then our posters are due in about a week and a half. So have fun, good luck, take your time with this. You have plenty of time in class to get the sketching done, and I look forward to seeing what you all come up with. All right, good luck, have fun. Reach out if you have questions, comments, concerns. Bye guys.